So last night, Sunday night, the rumours broke from Portuguese outlet Jornal de Noticias, saying that Liverpool open talks with Porto about a deal for Otavio. Leeds at a £26 million bid rejected, and apparently a £40 million release clause that's active in mid-July was going to be activated or looked at by Liverpool, certainly. Neil Jones subsequently shot it to bits. I'll ask him a bit more about that on Journo Insight later in the week. There's no truth apparently in those reports. Not a target and never has been. I mean, Dan, I'd have been a bit surprised if Liverpool moved for another player, if we pinched another player from Porto as well and all that kind of stuff. What's the world in which this made sense?
It made sense, I think, if we were looking to actively sell Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Yeah. I think that's a like-for-like replacement I can foresee happening, because you mentioned there a right-sided player. He predominantly was a right-sided player last season. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, he played centrally quite a lot, and he's actually extremely versatile. So in terms of like a profile, it is all there. And obviously you mentioned the fact we've raided Portugal quite a lot recently. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's where some of these links stem from. You know, we clearly are a fan of the Premier League, and we are looking at their players. We do like what they offer. So it does make sense in terms of him, but in terms of where we're at as a squad, I don't see the fit with Oxlade-Chamberlain staying personally. Yeah. I think if he was on his way out and for his own sake potentially, that might be a thing that still happens, then we might look at Otavio, but right now I get why we wouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Portugal thing's interesting because we know that's Julian Ward's area of expertise as well. Liverpool have got ties to that area. So when I saw it, the first thing I did when anything comes out to Portugal, I text Aaron from Prasima Janada, who basically tells me if it's BS or whatever, like the outlets, because we don't know. We just see Portuguese outlets. And I said, like, first of all, Aaron, is this outlet legit? And he was like, I know nothing on the story, but that is a legit, like, it's a proper outlet, like it makes sense. So the story is just coming from something. It's either somewhere. Maybe it's just Leeds or Porto trying to draw Leeds into getting higher bids or something as well. So that was the first thing I did, was text Aaron. He said, yeah, I don't know if it's true, but the outlet's this. And then I asked him about the player. He went, he's obviously a Porto fan. He went, I'll be gutted if you get him, because Diaz, Vieira, Vitinha, now possibly Otavio, all going from Porto. The issue Porto have got when this kind of stuff happens is the release clauses. Everyone who goes to Porto gets themselves a pretty nifty release clause more often than not. So, and
I'm pretty sure at this point they're putting it in their Twitter bios as well.
Just letting everyone knows what's happening.
Premier League especially, 100%.
Everybody knows what's happening. So when I first saw it, the player didn't make sense because the age profile and the position where he plays, but it was a reputable outlet. Listen, last time Neil Jones told us we went signing someone from Porto, we signed him the next day. So, so hopefully, and that was Neil's fault. I think the information changes, so things can change. You never know what's happening. But he was categorical this morning, and you can read between the lines where Neil gets his information from. He gets it from pretty good places. So it looks like it's been poo-pooed. I think the position of the player would make sense if Oxlade-Chamberlain had come to Liverpool and said, I want to go. Because he's someone who can play centre mid, well, right of a three effectively, and can also do a job on the wing, which is essentially Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Very similar age to him as well. Yeah. But yeah, that was the way it wouldn't make any sense. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened though. I wouldn't be surprised if Ox goes to Liverpool and says, you know what, please let me leave. Yeah. As it stands, apparently he hasn't done that from what's been reported, but looking at his standing in the squad and the signings we've made subsequently, and I think the end of last season when lads were getting games ahead of him who he thinks he probably should get games ahead of, I wouldn't be surprised if he's knocked on the door and had the word. So if Liverpool were looking for a replacement for Chamberlain, then he would make sense. The flip side, obviously, Paul, is that if you're going to sell Chamberlain, you're just going to get another worldie and everyone else moves down a peg. Yeah. That's how you'd want to do it, but we're not always in that world.
But that's the thing. If we're still back to this midfield conversation, we've had a lot of this at Dan, where Liverpool are clearly, I believe anyway, in the market for a big name, and it's probably the next Jordan Henderson. It's Jordan Henderson's long-term replacement.
Yeah, his name's Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, exactly. Jude Bellingham. We're all beating around it.
Or it might have been Aurelian Tchouameni, but it's Jude Bellingham. So I think Liverpool are interested, and everyone wants to get. We talked about this a problem with stopgap signings, and this is the reason why Liverpool would be happy for Oxlade-Chamberlain to stick around. Well, they'll probably be looking to massage him into that situation. Yeah. Because, and look, Otavio clearly a good player, but he doesn't feel like a player where Liverpool are. He's anything more than a squad player for Liverpool, because he's not getting into Liverpool's first choice free. He's probably standing a little bit in the way of the progression of a couple of the young players as well. I don't know. Yeah, it does feel more like it's getting an extra number in, not long term.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the stopgap thing only really makes sense. I think Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's like the stopgap that's in place already.
Exactly.
Quite frankly, isn't he? You know, if he does come and say, which we're not even back in pre-season yet, he's already sort of put his social media out there, say he's already at work, which is obviously great, but there is a world whereby, like Steve says there, I think there's a world whereby he comes and says, I'm not happy with the lack of football I played. He had a really good January, I've said it a few times on here, he had a really good January when everyone's at AFCON, and then we've all seen the Nottingham Forest game whereby he was obviously disappointed to get taken off, and then he barely kicks the ball in anger from there on out.
So he literally doesn't.
Well, yeah, exactly. So there's a world whereby he comes in pre-season and goes, listen, I'm still 6th, 7th in the pecking order here, I want to go. And then, with the sort of release clauses we're talking about for Otavio, that does make sense. Like, we're not going to go and spend 80, 90, 100 million on a player we don't really want, like the stopgap player. That's Jude Bellingham money for next year, that. So the Otavio thing does make sense. And also, you know, we've got a bit of a history with Spurs going with Luis Diaz in terms of, obviously, if Leeds, and I think I did a piece the other day on Aston Villa, once in Otavio as well. So if Premier League clubs are sniffing around him, that does tend to pique our interest a little bit too. So us being interested isn't a surprise. Us acting on it now would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the notion of having more lads. We're going to come on to talk about Takumi Minamino and what that means for Liverpool's squad depth, and having more versatile lads who can just cover this season in particular, and the first half of this season when it's going to be chaos, absolutely unbridled chaos. It's not necessarily the worst idea anyone's ever had, but I don't know, this has got a bit of the... this smells a little bit like, I don't think it's as categorical. It feels to me like they put the feelers out, definitely. You know, you wouldn't, this doesn't come from nowhere. It wouldn't shock me if Liverpool have got 2 or 3 of these irons in the fire, where just keeping tabs, keeping a watching brief on 1 or 2 in case, as you say, Ox comes back next week and he's just like, right, not for me. Nah, not for me. I mean, you know, Steve, you're right. Looking at Oxlade-Chamberlain, even just looking at his Premier League appearances last season, you know, from the Norwich game, which is the back end of February the 19th, he's barely even in the squad. You know, he's on the bench for Leeds, West Ham, not even for Brighton, on the bench for Arsenal, on the bench for Watford, and then there's 7 games to follow when he's not even in, or 6 games, he's not even on the matchday squad. And that's the business, and that's when Liverpool are playing in 3 competitions once you get past the end of February, where it could be reasonably expected that he might drop in to give someone a rest.
Especially that Southampton game, like when Jones and Elliott start him in field ahead of him and Taki's on the right wing, he's probably thought then, that's me done. But I'll say this, we've had conversations before where it looks like someone's career's over and they've Divock Origi, you know, people work themselves back in. If I'm Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I know it's a bit far-fetched, but like, there's a World Cup in December and there's now 26-man squads. If you're him, you're probably backing yourself to give it a go.
At Liverpool, though?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not at Liverpool. If you're agitating for a move, Jesse Lingard, I referenced this on a week ago, I think when we were speaking to Dan, I don't want to repeat too much. He went to West Ham before he knew he was back in the England team, straight away, because he played, scored goals, delivered. Yeah. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain could go to Villa, Newcastle, Brighton, whoever, play every week, score 10 goals, and all of a sudden England's like, oh, hello, lad who can play right wing, play centre mid, score goals, interesting. Yeah. Because England aren't blessed with midfielders, really. Yeah. They've got a few nailed on ones, you know, you're Rice and Phillips, Henderson, Bellingham, but like, who else is around there that you nailed on? Jesse Lingard got himself back into there. It's like James Ward-Prowse has been involved. Chamberlain could be thinking, I'm better. So if he was going to move, this wouldn't shock me if you went and got a lad for 40 odd million quid on a 4-year deal and he just plays out as a squad role. That's why I thought there was like maybe potential legs in it. Turns out obviously Liverpool and Porto pretty much knocking that on the head. So it might have just been Porto trying to get Leeds more money. But I still think there's a world where Chamberlain wants to go and we're either selling him and we have to do something to replace him, or you're keeping a relatively unhappy player. And both of them are far from ideal situations, because unless you go and get Jude Bellingham, and essentially everyone else knocks down the pecking order, it's going to be really hard for Chamberlain to knock at Klopp's door and Klopp say, no, you have to stay. I don't think Jürgen ever wants to do that.
Well, there is that, but there's also, and this is where the management, the man management side of things comes, is that it happens sometimes where you can only so many people can get a move, and he'd probably need to walk in, Dan, day one of pre-season and say no. And if he's not already been sort of teeing it up, because there will be a point where Liverpool will go, sorry, you've shit the bed a bit here. You know, it happened with Coutinho in vastly different circumstances, but you've not left us with any time to sort this out whatsoever. We'd love to facilitate a move for you if you don't want to be here. But also, then there is just, again, there's a pecking order to who's going. You know, if we're saying net, we want to keep the squad plus or minus one, you know what I mean, from where we were last season. If too many lads want to move on, there's only so many they're going to be allowed to leave. So Ox has got a window and he might just find himself stuck, even though he might want to leave.
He could well do, which is obviously not an ideal situation at all, because you don't want players sticking around that don't necessarily want to be there. You want players who are dying to get on the shirt and dying to do a job, really. But Klopp is the master of keeping players happy. We've seen that over the years with your likes of Origi and Minamino previously. But, you know, there are definitely players already that have obviously gone in, Mane being one, or we're going to speak about him in a minute, and Minamino likewise, that have said, I'm not happy for XYZ reason, I need to move. And if Oxlade-Chamberlain hasn't done that yet, which it certainly looks like he hasn't, his ship may already have sailed. But I agree on the England point. I think there's still... He should be ambitious enough to suggest he could get in the England squad still. And staying at Liverpool, no disrespect to the lad, that doesn't happen. That's writing that off straight away. He's got no chance because he's just not going to play the football that facilitates that. Yeah,
Jürgen always says, doesn't he, like, he starts every season, they have like a verbal contract, almost like, for 12 months, don't worry about anything else. For 12 months, you are all in, and we're going to run, and we're going to work, and we're going to go for everything. I'll give you everything if you give me everything. It's hard for... I may be wrong, Ox might be happy. He might just be perfectly content.
Well, we were having this conversation about Origi last summer.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's he doing? Surely he'll want to move on. And he's like, he's quite cool.
You say that, but then when he left, he said that was hard. Like, everyone thought I was sound, just not playing. No, I really wanted to. So it's pros and cons. You can be a bad influence, or you can just get on with it. Like Nico Williams, by all accounts, has said he wants to go. Nat Phillips, I had the conversation. Players are having these conversations with Liverpool, and very, very rarely does a player come to Anfield to knock on Jürgen Klopp's office, I want to go, and he stays. Coutinho did it, and it was only because of the money. And as soon as he could, he was gone. It very rarely happened. I don't think we've seen it more.
We've done it with Mane, haven't we? We could have easily played hardball with Sadio Mane. It's such an integral player.
He's knocked on the door, world-class player.
And we've allowed him to leave. So that's sort of the case in point here. If we're allowing Sadio Mane to leave after another phenomenal season, there's not a world whereby if Oxlade-Chamberlain comes and says, I want to go, we say, no, you have to stay. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
Also, from an ego point of view, it would be hard, because I think we all know the Bellingham thing. Going to a seasoned professional England international like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain saying, actually, you're staying unless we sign 18-year-old, 19-year-old Jude Bellingham, and then you can go. That would hurt Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think it would. I would be like, hang on a minute. Are you Curtis Jones got ahead of me? Harvey Elliott, now all these kids, what am I doing here? So I can see that there's two sides to it. It's going to be difficult. So ideally, for Ox to go, it would be that Liverpool can go and sign Bellingham or whoever else is on there, high up on their list, like real big targets. Someone like Otavio really doesn't really tick that box. But I think it was interesting that how quickly it was denied as well. It wasn't given any chance really to breathe. It was the next day.
My only concern with this, and it's not a concern until it's truly borne out, and it's a bit of fear-mongering maybe from me and this, but it's the digital age. That's what it's all about. I would like us to stop signing players from Portugal for a bit and just see it, just to show we can buy players from elsewhere if we're gonna. And I know, look, you know, we don't truly know how many of the signings in the last year or 6 months or whatever were 100% Julian Ward's, because Michael Edwards is obviously still definitely.
I think we know Diaz was.
I know. We've got a very strong inkling, haven't we? But there was a little bit to which I'm a bit like, this has got a lot of like the Houllier coming in and buying French players on the back of like, oh, you know, he's like, well, we're undergoing a Portuguese revolution here. We're buying exclusively players who've got connections to the Portuguese league. You can have multiple nationalities, but if you've got to have played in the Premier League, and there's a little bit. It's like, okay, is this cool, or is this like you start to? It's a bit like how you've got a broad vocabulary, which I am not unaware of the irony of not me struggling for the word there, trying to say that. But you only have a buffer of words that you use at any given time. So it's like a word comes into usage, you use one word over and over again. And it's a bit like he's just got a little bit sidetracked by, maybe he's got some frequent flyer miles, it's easy to get there back. Maybe he's got a good oldie home over there. I don't know, I'm a little concerned that we're just
golf on the Algarve.
Like we're just literally exclusively, here's the profile. He's forgotten to he's searching by country country or searching by league, and he's still filtering by interested, but he's forgotten to look. Well, you can go to Italy and buy players, you can go to Germany and buy players as well. I mean, it's a stupid fear to have. But yeah, I'm not against this. I just can't foresee. It's just, I don't think it's needed at the moment.
I think there was probably other players from Porto. If you were after Porto midfielder, you might have went to anyway beforehand. Like Arsenal have just got one, Vitinha as well. So yeah, I don't mind if that's his area of expertise, because it worked out once so far. We don't know how the other's going to go. So he's got a 1-for-1 hit rate so far.
But to be fair, Darwin Núñez's Instagram's been
for the load,
dripping.
That's ridiculous, absolutely absurd.
Good use of word.
Honestly, in every sense of the matter, it was stunning. He might have had ties to the Jota deal. We don't at the time. Who knows as well? Again, another link to Porto there.
We've seen Grujic go the other way as well, didn't we, on this note as well? So there are links, and I think Pep Linders has spoken about his love for Portuguese football.
He's got a link there, hasn't he? And Vitor Matos has got one as well.
Ties.
There are ties, yeah, definitely.
It wouldn't shock me. And Chris made this point a while ago, I think, on another show. So again, I thought it was interesting. Is that it might be that's where Liverpool's advantage is, because again, in a world if we can't match the transfer fees to an extent, but also the wages, going to get someone from Portugal might just be a bit cheaper, and you get a similar level of player. So, if Man United now got Bruno Fernandes, and they play the well, they're getting him, really did, but now they've had to pay him and stuff. Liverpool are trying to you can get the first contract out of them before everyone realises how good they are. We hopefully see that with Diaz, we hopefully see it with Núñez. So I think it makes sense for us to be looking for the edge, because
Otavio, feels to me, before we get too lost in it, it's a very standard Premier League signing.
Leeds would make sense.
It feels like a very Liverpool signing of 10 years ago. It wasn't exciting buying a player. He sounds very. Doesn't he sound very? Like
his name ends in the O.
He is Brazilian. He's Brazilian born, but he plays for Portugal. So it's all there. All the flares there.
Exactly. But I mean, I'm not against that. Again, it's got a bit of a Albert Riera vibe to it. Actually, probably not so much, because he was not quite the missing piece in that team, but we very much needed a left side of midfielder, and he ticked that box. But he was never a 9 out of 10 left wing, and he just went and got someone who fulfilled the thing. Feels like that's what Otavio would be, and it looks like there might well be something in this, but it seems circumstantial as much as anything else. Hope you enjoyed that free section from this week's transfer show. It is streaming every Monday on Redmen Plus in video and in podcast form. This week's show has got loads more as well. Sadio Mane's agent rubbishing talk that he was only on 100 grand a week at the Reds. Taki Minamino's move to Monaco and what it means for the mighty Merseyside movers. Have we got enough squad depth as a result of that? What could it mean for the likes of Kate Gordon? And Liverpool have signed a youth player. Who is he? What will it mean for Liverpool's setup? As well as delving into all kinds of things around the Premier League. So Gabriel Jesus moving to Arsenal, Sterling to Chelsea, Lukaku to Inter Milan, and also a little bit on Gareth Bale to LAFC. What does it all mean? Come and join me, Steve and Dan Club over on redmenplus.com right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you enjoyed that video. And if you want more from us, or you want to support the free stuff that we do here, then please do check out redmenplus.com, our Liverpool streaming service. It's like Netflix for Reds, where we get to chat to Liverpool legends, past and present. We've got great interviews there with Virgil van Dijk, with Jamie Carragher, with Phil Thompson, and loads more as well. Get closer to the fabric of Liverpool, the football club, and the city on Redmen Plus.